Thank you. So I am going to play the role of the moderator, but I thought it's important for the benefit of the audience that we set the context. Why are we speaking about this technology and future of work? So basically, technology and future of work is one lead from Industry 4.0, which I think it's not just relevant, but it would be very apt for students to understand how the workplace is changing, or how the future of the workplace is going to be, and what role and what could be your contribution there, and what are the skills that you may want to impart if you really want not just to become employable but also to be relevant. So these are some of the important slides. So Industry 4.0 is just an extension of Industry 1.0, which basically few hundred years back, the world went through mechanization, production of steam power, then electricity, and then we have automation, which is 4.0, digitization, which is under 4.0. Why is this so important? If you see, there are two reports that I read up. One is the World Economic Forum report on 21st century skills, which predicted way back in 2015, 2016 that 65% of the children in primary school at that time will end up working in jobs that would not exist at that time. So just imagine that what we are actually training students, what we are educating students are for the jobs that may not actually exist today. The second one was the World Economic Forum report 2021, which spoke about upskilling, which was very interesting, how the evolution of the technology is interacting with the employment. And I think we all saw COVID-19. COVID-19 played a very important factor in actually embracing technology in sectors which we never thought technology would touch. One of the sectors I would mention is, I don't think so in the history of Indian independence ever courts functioned using technology, and including the Supreme Court had to go and function using the technology. So technology played a very important role and is still continuing to play that role. So this becomes very relevant. So with this very brief introduction to the topic, with two very important reports that are already written, I would pose the following questions, and I would invite, first of all of you to give your opening remarks as to how you think the technology and the future of work is, according to you, in the organization that you represent, is relevant, and what do you think the students should, how students should take and prepare for Industry 4.0. So I would start from you, sir, and you could start reflecting, and this is just an opening statement before I ask any specific questions. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me? So at RMSI, we were already very deep in technology, and the technology, what you refer to as the fourth industrial revolution. So there is no turning back. We clearly see that metaverse, it's already very much happening. And in the future, we have to be ready for this alternate social reality, right? In which digital and physical is they're just fused together. So it's not like, okay, you have social media and then you have something else. It would just be together. We're also talking about the rise of the AI and how everything and all the things that we have would have a smart component to it. So when all of this is happening and new products, technologies, solutions are being developed around it, and the whole competitive advantage of the nation is linked to how we do around these technologies and areas, it's going to have a very fundamental impact on the career choices and the directions that you all would like to pursue. I would say right now there's a huge gap. We only produce about 10 to 15,000 people who have AI-related degrees, and whereas the demand is far more. So I'll just leave it at that point about what the need is in the market and where the gap is.
Thank you so much, Brajesh.
So I think, let me put things in the perspective I look at. And I represent consulting industry, having spent some 25 years in power distribution, utilities, and telecom. So more, I'll try to link with the consumer behavior, and I think the context of this call today, I think we're talking about human resource. Most important is, why do we need technology? We need technology to evolve. We're talking about industry 4.0, 3.0. Let's not structure this into any 0.0. Let's talk about why do we need technology. So we need technology to make our operations more efficient. Now we are kind of country where everybody is looking at cost optimization. To do more optimized, more profitable ventures, everybody needs technology. So whether it is 4.0 today, tomorrow this could be 5.0. Second is why, because our dependency on other factors are very important. People are cost conscious, be it your consumer or be it your supplier, or you as a business owner or as an employee also. So you always look at where are the areas we can at least squeeze and make operations more profitable. Second is people aspect. We actually want to give that much of opportunity to people also, wherein despite of putting so many hours, if the yield or if the produce or if the output is less, how can we leverage and maximize this? Now, if we look at, one thing is very common, which is like money. We live in the world, this is Earth Yuga. Everybody is talking about money in some other way. Employees talk about how can they put less effort, be more productive. Organizations look at how can they put less cost in terms of their bottom line, be more profitable. And nation or society look how with the less spend they can make most use of it. This is where, to realize this dream, we need a platform to leverage this. That's where the technology is. In India now, we are talking about 4.0 today, more AI, ML, metaverse, all these terminology and jargon, probably because the Western world has already done that. I think we are a different market altogether. But yes, there's a big gap, certainly, what other people have already done it. Look at telecommunication, we are talking about 5G now. World over, people have already done it and they are preparing for 6G as well. Certainly this, if I look at, in hindsight, this is a bigger opportunity that is available for people, for organization, for institute like yours, to make sure that you create a workforce which is future ready. To industry, also put things in perspective, start building blocks, and also for consumers to get ready and leverage this technology.
Thank you. Dr. Lalit, your opening remarks, please.
Thanks, very interesting thoughts, Brajesh. If I just build on that, the third piece of this whole equation is on the product side. And that's where I firmly believe, and I think at McGraw Hill we also believe, I represent McGraw Hill, which is education, publishing, information analytics, whichever way we look at it, is the product side of it. And why we, and how I look at it, how we look at it is, what is the need in the marketplace? So we look at technology in that sense as an enabler and as a part of the solution for a problem that exists there. Now, it could be making the life of the student easier. It could be making the job of the teacher or an instructor or a faculty member more efficient, more impactful. It could be addressing the needs of variance in the learning capabilities, or I should say the learning, the steps in the journey of learning for different students. So we talk about, when we talk about 4.0, we also talk about making things personalized. So that's where I think from an education perspective, we try to bring this in, wherein we can use technology. We do use technology, our solutions do that. We gauge where the starting point for each student is and where we can take it to with help of technology. And in the end, idea is not to make everybody equal. Idea is to make sure everybody realizes their full potential and meet a certain minimum, benchmark that's there, that's qualifiable. So that's the on the product side of things. And I think you very well covered the people side of it. How do we really, drive more efficiency, make people's life better, our employees' life better. We were talking about HR a while back, so I want to touch slightly upon that also. I think there's a big movement towards using more and more technology. Resume scanning is being done using technology. I have slightly different take on that. I think that takes out that whole human element from the process, and that in the end sometimes defeats the objective. So we have to be careful to what extent we want to really take it. Maybe in future, 5 years, 10 years down the line, AI will become as smart as it needs to be to give us the desired output. Right now, there are certain areas where technology and specifically this just the machine interpretation is not really up to the mark. So just want to leave that word of caution there.
Thank you, Dr. Lalit. Mr. Rajiv Gupta, sir,
Yeah,
please your
hi.
opening remarks.
So this is Rajiv Gupta. I work for PB FinTech. I have got about 30 years of experience. So I've seen both sides of the world. And I started my career way back in 1990. So all of you wouldn't have been born by then, I guess. Most of you here. So I worked for a company called GE Capital for 8 years, and from there on, I worked in several BFSI segments. I remember in 2004. I mean, I'm not very, just about 16, 17 years ago or 18 years ago, when I started my career with SBI Life, Manas from OP Jindal also was working with me in those days. We used to have insurance proposals coming and lying on the floor. So we had manually people sitting on the floor trying to put things together, papers together, and seeing that if all the medical reports are attached to the respective files. Processes used to take weeks together, to complete things. And we were wondering how LIC, from 1950 onwards, had built this legacy, with so much volumes which they were doing. And so today, things have changed. Technology has changed, right? One can forget your wallet at home, but not your phone, So things are rapidly changing, and I think if you have to build LIC today, probably you don't require 50 years to build LIC. LIC can be built probably in much lesser time because technology supports you to do that, And PolicyBazaar is one such example. Not that we built LIC, but PolicyBazaar is one such example of having created a largest online distribution space, in the country today. 90% of online distribution today happens through PolicyBazaar, and so does distribution of financial products happening through Paisabazaar. The first era was all about, I guess, digitization. You had processes like Internet of Things, advanced analytics, but now from 16 to 25, we are all talking about artificial intelligence, robotics. We're talking about machine learning. I remember during COVID, my son is pursuing his IIT fourth year, from IIT Kanpur in petroleum engineering. Obviously, he lost 2 years, to COVID, and when he was at home, somebody probably who's not aware, I'm a commerce background person, I'm completely out of engineering and background. I used to tell him, apart from curriculum, try and do some programs of analytics, data science, artificial intelligence. So I actually put him on some courses through Harvard Online, where he pursued some 8 or 9 programs of 8 weeks, learning these threads. I said, if that will create a difference in you when you go back to the physical world. So I guess Industry 4 is all about big change. I guess this will last for another 2-3 years, and then we're talking about the next wave, right?
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajiv. May I invite Mr. Rahul Sood, Managing Director, India and Asia, BBC News, to give his reflections.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for this opportunity to be part of the panel over here today. So basically, my background is I've been primarily in the media space for the last 25 plus years. Started my career with the telecom industry in its very, very early days. In fact, I was the 7th employee when the entire Delhi circle for cellular services was being set up in the mid-90s. But I spent a year there. Thereafter, I've been in media from the middle 90s, having worked globally in the US, in India, in Singapore. And I think there is, few industries which have seen this gamut of change in technology being used, and how I think not just news but entertainment is covered, captured, transmitted, and consumed. I think all of us see how we consume media. I think the way I consume media is very different to how my daughter consumes media, is very different to how my parents consume media. So I think we've been at the cross section of all of these changes, and I think our biggest learning, and I think I'll probably share more anecdotes and more things that I've seen and learned, and where we see this big technological change continuing rapidly to happen in the years ahead. I think as and when the panel we discuss more options and topics, I think I'll be able to share more details with you. But I think, as I said, it took, as somebody just said, if LIC took 50 years to get where it is today, likewise in the media space, I work for a company which was founded exactly 100 years back, which is the BBC today. It started in 1922, here we are in 2022. In fact, some of the legacy companies find it much more difficult to leapfrog technology or make changes in technology because of its inherent legacy culture that you get caught up in. While a newer startup company like a TikTok, which has taken over, in fact, the entire media space, is able to leapfrog things and do many things which some of the legacy companies find very difficult. So that's really where I think we guys are obviously grappling with how to produce content, how to make sure it is reaching the eyeballs that are consuming the content on different devices, in different forms, and in different duration. I mean, I think the attention span of each one of us is, as we all can see, is getting, I think, more and more limited and dwindled with every passing year. It's just because we are being hit with this plethora of information. How to filter through it, how to sift through it and make sense of it from your perspective, I think is the biggest challenge we have, and that's really the big focus area for anybody who's in the content production space today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your opening remarks.